Sunday. Here's Forrest Sawyer.
Good evening. White House Chief of Staff John Sununu is in the center of a political storm tonight. 3 times since April, the Chief of Staff has been rebuked for his travel arrangements, most recently for incorrectly reporting who paid for a corporate charter flight he took to a Chicago political event. And now some White House officials are suggesting Sununu's apology for all of that may be too little, too late. Here's ABC's Ann Compton.
President Bush had an unmistakable answer to the question, will he keep John Sununu as his chief of staff? The president's continued support comes after Sununu issued a weekend apology for what he called mistakes, and after tight new travel rules were imposed by White House lawyers. But the turn of events still has left many insiders suggesting Sununu has 2 options. He can continue to run the White House, but only if he sheds his high-profile style. His second option is to leave, but Republicans wonder, where would he go? The Republican National Committee is not an option. Clayton Yiter was installed there a few months ago, and the job would be a step down in a presidential campaign year. Mr. Bush already has a triumvirate of close friends expected to open his campaign this September. Robert Teeter, the strategist, Frederick Malek, the manager, and eventually Commerce Secretary Robert Mosbacher as chairman. Former Chief of Staff Craig Fuller is running the Republican convention. None of them want Sununu around. Besides, today a potential Democratic candidate seized on Sununu's apology as an issue for 1992.
John Sununu being contrite is probably, in the scheme of things, about a 30-second phenomenon, which is probably not repeatable for the next 2 or 3 years if he stays in office.
There are still some arguments being made that Sununu is not a serious liability.
The president is up so high in the popularity polls, and the opposition is in such disarray that he can afford Sununu if he thinks that he needs him.
Judging from the president's sign of positive reaction this afternoon, he does think Sununu is worth keeping on despite the political fallout. Forrest?
And I expect the White House watchdogs are going to be keeping a pretty close eye on Governor Sununu. Is there any indication that he intends to change his ways?
Well, he wouldn't stop and chose not to stop and answer any questions about that today. But I think it is true that there are senior aides here who deny the published reports. They have urged President Bush to get rid of Sununu. They have given him some advice on how to get rid of the problem. They will be watching the governor's travel schedule. His next speech is right here in the Washington area tomorrow morning.
Ann Compton at the White House. Thank you, Ann. Other news in the federal government, the Resolution Trust Corporation is struggling to stay afloat as it works to oversee the savings and loan bailout. The RTC says it needs another $80 billion to keep going, and it is aggressively auctioning off foreclosed real estate. Now, that could mean bargains. But as Karen Burns reports, as always, it is let the buyer beware.
Here in Massachusetts and throughout the Northeast, many people have fallen victim to the recession. This weekend, lured by the promise of affordable housing, thousands streamed toward an RTC auction. As part of their mandate, the RTC was auctioning off low to moderate income housing for under $100,000.
We'll make a lot of people happy. We'll give them homes, and I think that's quite an accomplishment. The government's doing something right for a change.
17 now, 18.
Melba Jackson is on edge. She is at this auction hoping to buy her dream, her first home ever. Because her income is less than $30,000, Melba is qualified to bid here. These are the people the government claims can benefit from the savings and loan crisis. Melba Jackson needs a home for her children and grandchildren. Peter and Lori Riva need a home for their family and their elderly in-laws.
This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for many of these buyers who probably would not have had the opportunity to purchase a home without RTC being able to sell these properties at this time.
But amid the optimism here, some say that the RTC is not fulfilling its mandate. Housing rights groups charge that instead of selling dream houses to the average American, the RTC is perpetuating a cycle of greed.
Housing for people, not for profit.
These people charge that auction properties could fall into the hands of unscrupulous speculators. They also claim the RTC is selling abandoned property to unwitting people and offering them no money to fix it up.
People will enter into this auction today hoping that they will come away with a house that they could not otherwise afford, and they're going to go away sorely disappointed.
In fact, that's what happened to the Rivas, who saw this property in the auction brochure and won it at the auction. When the Rivas asked the RTC for rehab and financing assistance, they were told none was available. Because of that, this house may now languish like so many others the government cannot get rid of. Karen Burns, ABC News, Boston.
Still ahead, Israel begins to release Palestinian prisoners to ease tensions in the occupied territories. American weapons salesmen cash in on the glory of the Gulf War. And later in the broadcast, a place where monkey business is serious business.
World News Sunday.